Hello again. I'd like to continue the discussion here of Xcode and Interface Builder. And in the last discussion, I talked about making a weather app. And the app is using the UI label to display various information here. And now what I'd like to do is I'd like to add a text field. And the text field is another UI element that we can get off the object palette down here at the bottom on the right side. And the text field allows you to insert editable text. Okay, so it's sort of an input field. You could use it for forms and other elements. Imagine here that we want to input a city or a location and get the city name or the location name and then generate the weather from that information. So maybe I'll select all the fields here and move them down a little bit. And then I'll take the text field here and I'll drag it into my view. And I can, pull the control handles here to make it fit the view there. And the text field here has a bunch of options on the side here. They're a little different than the UI label. And you can see them here when I select the text field. You can see it says text field, text plain. This is the text that we would see in the field. I can type something in there. And then we'd see it appear here on the screen. I'm going to delete that for now. And down here you can set the color of the text. I'll leave it at the default color for now. And then below we can set the font and the font size and the font family and whatnot in the same way we would set that with the UI label. Let's leave that at the default. There's also the alignment option here, which is the same as the UI label. So I'll put some text in there again and you'll see it here. And below this, there's an option that says placeholder, and this is the placeholder text. So, let me take the text out of there, and if I type in, enter location, right? So if I type that in, you can see the placeholder text appears in the field. And if I were to test that in the simulator, I have to wait for a minute for this to launch. You'll see that the text appears here, and you'll see the placeholder text. And if I click on that and type into the field here, then you'll see the placeholder text goes away and the regular text goes in there. You'll notice that the keyboard here doesn't go away. So if I type into the field, if I click somewhere or hit enter, the keyboard isn't going to go away. We need to do that in code with some other options. But anyway, we can see that it is working. So here's a few more options, and there's a lot here. You'll need to explore these on your own and kind of, take a look and experiment with these to get an idea. But let me point a couple out to you. So if you don't like the border here and you want to create your own custom border, you can do that with an image. And I'm going to talk about images in the next video. So you'll need to follow some of the instructions there and then come back here. But essentially, if you have any images in your library here, you'll be able to choose them off the menu here and set them as the background. And you can also assign a disabled image. So when the text field is disabled, then this image will display instead of the one up here. You can set the border. And for some reason, the rounded border doesn't have a handle to set the height of the box. But if I choose one of these square borders, it does. So, if you want to use the square border. Also, the square border has a transparent background, and the round border has an opaque background. So that's another difference between these. You can't tell here because the background is white in both cases. And there's a couple other options here. You'll notice, let me make the text a little bit larger here. I'll make it 21 points. And there's an option here that says minimum font size. So as a designer, you might look at this and say, well, you know what? As someone types into the field, like if they type in, San Francisco, California, right? And then they're going to type in maybe their zip code 94, and you'll notice when the text gets large enough where it would, fall outside the box, the text will begin to shrink, and it'll get smaller until it hits the minimum font size, and then it'll actually go off the screen. So if I type in the numbers here, you can see as I'm typing, the text is getting smaller until it hits 17 points, and then it starts moving off the screen. So, as a designer, you can decide like where the font is going to break before it has to, move off the screen. So you can set that number here. For text that you enter into the field, it can be auto-corrected in a few ways. So the option here sets the capitalization. So maybe if we're going to enter a city name here, we might want to always capitalize the words. And this is for auto-correction, like the built-in auto-correction on the computer, and you can choose the default no or yes. So if you don't want auto-correct, you can leave that off. And then you can check spell checking. It's got the same option here for spell checking. And then you can set the keyboard type. And depending on what type of input this is going to take, you might want to customize the keyboard for that. So, on the list here, you can see we have the number pad, the phone pad, the name phone pad, email address, decimal, right, or web search. And so you can choose any one of those keyboards. I think for this, we just want the default one. And then there's an appearance, and the keyboard can either be dark or light. Okay, so depending on your background, you might choose one of these. I'm going to choose the default. Maybe I'll just set it to the dark one here and give it a quick test, right? And then when I type in here, oh, for some reason my keyboard isn't showing up there. I'm going to go up here to the hardware menu, and they have an option for the keyboard. I'm going to toggle the software keyboard. Yeah, so that'll bring it up, and you can see that's the dark keyboard. Okay. So anyway, so there's some options there. Let me get to this last one, and then we'll be done. The last one down here says return key. And so this allows you to customize the return key on the keyboard and decide kind of what it's going to do. In this case, if you're going to enter your city, you might want to hit the return, or maybe it would be better if the button said done when you were finished. And we can set that option here. So if we use the default, then the return key is going to say done or whatever it says, and I can say go instead. Maybe that would be good for a web search, or Google if we were going to search the web. Next, maybe if we're cycling through or searching records in our contacts or something. And maybe here, like when I'm done typing the city or location name in there, then I can type, I can use the done button here. Let's give that a quick test. So I'll type in here, and now you can see that the button down here says done. And in order to get the done button to actually close the keyboard, we need to actually do that in code. So there's an option for that, and we'll get to that later. So for right now, we can just test this. And again, I showed you the hardware menu up here. If we have some issues with the keyboard, like we want it to show or hide, we can always go up to the hardware menu and choose toggle keyboard, and I think that'll put it away there. Okay, so there's a little short bit about the text field.